Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of the show. I'm Joe, and truly, these are the absolute very best days of my week. Today, we got something pretty special for you. One of the biggest influencers that I know in education is joining us as a guest today, whose innovative approaches in education are reshaping a lot of things in California, but I would also say nationwide. A dynamic school leader. Please welcome Dr. Jerry Almendarez, Superintendent of Santa Ana Unified School District. Welcome to the show, Jerry.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, wonderful. I'm sure you're running fast like most superintendents are, and dealing with very, very complex matters that you're fully accountable for. What's it like to be you today, boss?
Well, it's definitely challenging. It almost feels like we're back in the COVID days because there's so much uncertainty on a day-to-day basis coming out, statewide with our budget, but also nationally with the policies uh, that are being issued throughout the country. And so it's that dance that we're doing, that ambiguity and that unknown that is out there that is creating these challenges for us.
Yeah, they call it VUCA. That
Yeah,
that it's volatile, it's uncertain, and, those other 2 things to but, understanding I'm sure you haven't forgotten what it was like to you came up from within the system, so
correct.
you still have the mindset of a teacher, you
Yeah.
still have the mindset of a principal, and any other district office positions that you've played, and there's just a ton of instability right now that I don't know if it's altogether true if you have a stable leader.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that creates challenges. We have the hiring challenge of the right staffing. We have, in some cases, overstaffing due to the COVID funds that were given to us. Now we have the right sizing of districts, and so as principals and the community is used to a certain level of service during COVID, and now we're having to reduce that amount of service. It brings these external challenges that are very frustrating, not just to me here in Santa Ana, but to my colleagues across the state and across the country.
Right, right, and they're looking to you. They are absolutely you're one of the most tech savvy. I mean, if you had a brand out there, I would just say you're the ed tech revolutionary. I've been watching and just with eye-popping amazement, not just the stuff that you can go to a conference and just be, like, wowed,
Yeah.
but where the practical application of that is what I've seen you be able to portage back into your district, with respect to some of the one-on-one stuff, with
Yeah.
respect to AI, with respect to how you're really redeveloping and restructuring your systems and your structures to kind of create this um, levity
Yeah.
levity that not every leader understands. It's almost like, oh no, we're layering more tech on top. So tell
Yeah.
me about your kind of your psychology of technology. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's good. That might
Yeah.
be the that might be the theme of this.
Yeah. So I think, coming out of COVID, I think one thing that I learned very quickly was that as we were having conversations with colleagues across the state, across the country, and across the globe, the agendas looked the same. It was about legislation, funding, labor relations, recruitment. And here we are having conversations about how we have to get back to normal. Well, when you look at a district like Santa Ana and those across the country that are below average, high poverty districts, normal isn't good enough for us.
Yeah.
And so hearing that over and over and over and over again from a variety of different platforms or meetings that I was a part of, it didn't reside well with me. And I knew at that point, we got to do something different. We have to do something different. And so that difference is reimagining how we lead, reimagining how we teach, and reimagining how we learn. And that goes for everybody in the system, the kids and the adults. About the same time we were engaged in this conversation, OpenAI and ChatGPT was released. And very quickly did I realize, in my executive cabinet realized, as we were experimenting with the platforms, that this really could be a game changer for our community. Our students that are living at or below poverty level really needed to we needed to expose them to this environment, and so that's where the innovation came in. And so rather than purchasing a product that we had been doing, we're a large district, so a lot of sites were trying to purchase the latest and greatest product. But when we did an internal analysis, we realized that they may have spent $35,000 on a platform, but only two teachers were using it.
Oh my goodness. So
So
off the shelf just was
yeah,
not working for you.
Yeah, and so after that analysis, we said, you know what? Let's ask people who are interested in learning this new platform and seeing how it can engage and help us with the work we do here. We began with a small cohort that eventually, over time, expanded to the entire, not to the entire district, but all over the districts, district wide. I
You
apologize.
might want to check if it,
No,
maybe
no, no,
that's
no.
somebody important.
Yeah, no, no, no. It's good. They would knock on the door here if they did. They know how to get a hold of me.
For sure. So reimagining, getting your core leaders to actually kind of do a check on their old belief system and
Yeah,
like rewire what does this now make possible for us, which you cannot do in a culture or a climate of fear, right?
exactly.
So when there's uncertainty and instability, we all have this natural reflex to fear, which does not allow us to get into that new world of creativity. So how have you worked with your people to kind of
So
reestablish the conditions of safety to be able to walk into these more creative zones?
Well, I mean, I have a blog that I've written. It's called "The Five Shifts in Today's Innovative Environment," and really, we've landed on these five critical areas to reflect on as district leaders. But very early in this process, we challenged our executive cabinet and said, "Look, if we're leading the same way we've always led, then we can expect the same results we've always got."
Oh my goodness. That's
And
worth a replay right there. If we are leading with the same skill sets and belief sets and probably heart sets that we've
yeah,
always had, don't expect any different results.
exactly. And so, there have been many staff development opportunities we've taken our principals through as we're participating in these conversations, walking around the room, listening to the dialogue. I'll take chronic absenteeism as a good example. We have tables and teams of principals by grade level having these conversations, and as we walk the room and navigate the room, the conversations sound the same way they did last year and the year before.
Mhm.
The solutions sound the same. So when we approach one of the tables with some pretty intense dialogue, we asked them that question: how is this different than the solutions you've been talking about or tried to implement last year and the year before? And their comment was, well, we're going to do it with fidelity.
Ah, fidelity and throw robust in there. Why not?
and
Just
and and,
throw some
and,
other words in there.
and my jaw just dropped because I wanted to say, well, then that means you weren't doing it with fidelity last year and you weren't doing it with the year before. I didn't call
You
them out
didn't
on
do
it.
that for real, but in
Yeah,
the back of your mind, it's
in my
playing
mind
what's
I'm
in the back of
thinking
my mind. Yeah.
I'm thinking this is crazy and we're spinning our wheels and we're working harder, but we're not working smarter. And so that's when, executive cabinet and myself came back and said, how are we going to reimagine how we lead? And came to the realization that it starts with us,
Yeah.
executive cabinet and the
Boom.
superintendents. And so we began to use the platforms to experiment and explore, and then take the things that we were doing to our principal meetings, to our executive director meetings, and demonstrating how we could develop a strategic plans, how we can develop newsletters, how we could do work assignments for teachers and stuff like that. And so once our executive director started to see the power and how much time this freed up of them, they said, okay, we want to use these platforms. And they started experimenting with them. And then once they found value in it, they took it to their curriculum program specialist and they said, hey, we want to use this with the teachers. And then that's when it took off.
Let me burn a timeout because I think just from a how you navigate change successfully with an organization. One, you mentioned it has to start at the top.
Yeah.
You don't hire in some fancy person to come in all tightly zipped up in a suit to be pushing their product to your
Yeah.
people. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
We build it from the inside. You have your culture leaders that are building practical applications to solve real problems, and you show people how those problems are solved to get their attention.
Yeah.
That's the hook. If
Yeah.
we don't hook our people with, here's something that's going to solve that thing that's keeping you awake at night.
Yeah.
Now I'm really interested, boss. But it has to start there. And so many of us forget. We get into it's that pull versus push. We got to pull people in instead of pushing them towards our expectations.
Well,
Oh,
well, I get frustrated. I've been a superintendent for 15 years, and there's a certain point where you get frustrated hearing people say, "Well, they got to do better."
yeah.
Well, principals have to do better. Teachers have to be more innovative. how come they're not getting out there into the classrooms? Well, my reflection is, what are you doing to allow that to happen?
Yeah.
And so that's where the four fingers are pointed back at us. If we're going to a principal, if we're facilitating a principal meeting at the district office and we're standing up in front of our principals for 90 minutes, 3 hours, talking
That
to them, how is that changing?
that's bad adult learning.
There you go. And so what the challenge that I gave executive cabinet was, okay, how are we going to model what those expectations are? If
So
we're expecting them to change, how what are we going to do different to
so
model that? And so I'm fortunate enough to have an amazing team that bought in and is now taking the ball and running with it far beyond what I could have expected.
well, I wish we had hours and hours, but we're gonna have a few minutes, I think, just to really talk about some of the really not cool initiatives because we're not looking for cool. We're looking for things that are actually results based in terms of your culture. What are some of the more rewarding experiences that you've had in spearheading some of these technological? I would call it a renaissance in education locally within your school buildings. What are some of the really, really exciting things that you're seeing?
Well, I think we've developed this innovative catalyst collective, which is a group of about 60 district stakeholders, classroom teachers, administrators that are working on with the Institute for the Future, using the research behind the framework for strategic foresight to really reimagine what teaching and learning looks like in the classroom, not just for kids but for adults. So we recently initiated a pilot project of taking kids in a sixth grade classroom through a metaverse, engaging them in a metaverse type of environment that is curriculum based or aligned with the standards, really engaging students into this new environment of the metaverse that is was constructed and tailored specifically for Santa Ana Unified School District. So we went out.
Because you're right there in the valley or close enough to it,
Well,
you got your
actually,
local partners.
we tapped into a person out in Australia
Why not?
who specialized in that work. His name's Andrew Wright, and we got connected a while back and just started to observe his work, and then we brought him in to a leadership retreat, and he held a couple of workshops and blew our principals' minds away because we wanted to put him in front of our principals to experience what it was like, and just blew them away. And then eventually, our ed service team said, "Okay, we have enough interest now. Can you come and create some metaverse environments that are tailored towards Santa Ana Unified School District?" And it took them a few months to do that, and we're piloting our first program at one of our elementary schools. And that's the other thing, is this Innovative Catalyst Collective is a very controlled group that vets the platforms and the programs that
Mm,
people are interested in using. So, like I'd mentioned earlier, sites were buying platforms and products that they thought was good for them, but only a very small number of people were using them. What this group is doing is saying, okay, rather than making those large purchases unilaterally, we're going to take input to those platforms that people want to use. We're going to identify the people that are going to pilot the programs, and then
mm.
their responsibility to just come back to our team and give us an update as to success or not success. And so in this case, this metaverse is in that process right now.
Wow. So there's another model. I mean, instead of just getting a real healthy head start and a running start and saying we're going towards this vision, you're stepping it out one slat of the bridge at a
Yeah.
time, and we're truly engaging your people in terms of better practices. So
Well,
finding the right people to be a part of this vetting team
a-
probably was something to be considered as well.
and the reality is that the reason why this is happening the way it's happening is because one, there's a vulnerable environment has been created in Santa Ana Unified School District for people at all levels to contribute to the conversation and to be listened to. But because the innovation is happening so quickly, there's a hesitation on just unilateral implementation. So this collective agreement that we made with our teachers and our principals was, we're going to start small, because if things go south quickly, which they could,
Yeah.
student information leak or something happen, that it happens at a much smaller scale and not a
Then it's
global.
DOA, right? Everything goes back into the box.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so we've taken that approach as we developed our AI guidance. The other important aspect of that conversation was to make sure that we visit that guidance not every year, but every 4 months. And the reason why is because the innovation, the technology is changing so rapidly
Yep.
that it's going to need us to review the guidelines to make sure that the current guidelines are meeting the current innovative environment.
Welcome to the modern world, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So not only reimagining technology, and let me just land on one last topic here before we close. You're having to reimagine how we develop people
Yeah.
in the process as well. So the old model of looking at your calendar saying, "Okay, here's the day when staff are going to learn."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So how are you also changing the culture of adult learning on campus?
So we're doing principal walkthroughs, we're doing parent walkthroughs, we're doing student walkthroughs, and they're all of the groups are coming together. So a principal could be walking through, a high school principal could be visiting a middle school with parents and students and hearing their reflections of what's happening in the classrooms. Because when principals don't engage in those type of human conversations, they're looking at it through the lens that they've always looked at it through.
Right.
They're trying to solve problems that they've always had with their experiences that they've had as they've elevated through the system. Well, because we're serving different generations, that doesn't necessarily work anymore. And so by having students and parents engage in this process, now we're hearing real time data, real time feedback of what meets their needs, not our needs. And that's the other push here is like, we're not creating a system for me or for my executive cabinet or for my principals. We're creating systems for the new generation of teachers, the students that are coming through our system to really provide them opportunities and experiences to be competitive globally, not no longer regionally, but globally.
Right. And you made a pretty big announcement to your principals today, which, you can go public with that here or not, but it is that how do you ensure that what you're doing is leader proof?
Yeah.
Because at some point you might be walking away and
Yeah.
going to do Jerry 2.0 or
Yeah.
3.0 or
Yeah.
4.0. Yeah, how are you ensuring that everything that you're doing is policy driven, system driven, so it's not dependent on
Well,
your office boss.
yeah, yeah, and I don't have a problem sharing with yeah, I did publicly announce my retirement a few weeks ago at a board meeting, and today, just was my last time in front of our principals with our principal meeting. But the important work that superintendents do as they get to this part of their career is really working on developing and creating systems for longevity. So no matter who sits in the seat, the work and the systems are in place where the expectations are from the community and from the board that this process or these things are going to continue to happen.
Right.
And so I have been blessed by having a wonderful team. I have an amazing deputy, and my hope is that my deputy is going to transition eventually into the position. Obviously, the board makes a final decision, but she has been part of this journey, a part of this process, and has been my right hand person and a mentor and a coach to me in my superintendency. So I believe I'm a better person because of the team that surrounds me. I'm also a big believer in reverse mentoring, meaning that I have to tap into the younger generation quite often to recalibrate and regauge how I think we should move forward.
What do you get when you have humility meeting smarts? You're looking at them, folks. You are looking at so closing, we're coming in for landing here. Uh, Back to VUCA, right? There's just leaders in your position and leaders downline the organizations in education, fear, uncertainty,
Yeah,
just doubt, wondering, oh, do I have what it takes to continue fighting in the ring right now?
yeah,
It's here we go again. So, and many of them just kind of losing their mojo. That's what I'm seeing on college campuses in terms of leadership. That's what I'm seeing in K-12 as well. Pep talk time.
well,
Doc, pep talk. How do we keep our people propped up, good posture, and doing the right work?
if we're not reflective and not willing to change, then we're going to get tired. And I think we have to adapt as society adapts, as the new generation adapts. If you look at the research, I want to say 80% of the adult population's primary source of information is on social media platforms. So if we're not, and that's an easy item to identify here. If we're not on social media, then we're missing 80% of our target market, right? And that target market includes students, and includes employees, future employees, and includes, new generation of leaders. So I think it's important for today's leader to either embrace this VUCA environment and learn the innovation, to be able to use it to our advantage, to lead in a different way. So the question that I reflect on most importantly is, how do I maintain my relevancy,
Mm.
and what skills how do I upskill in order to be relevant for whatever's coming next? And as I transition to chapter 2, that's one of the things that I want to do, is help the new generation of leaders embrace this innovative state, to be able to learn the different platforms, how to use them for and to improve their workflows, so they can get out into the school sites, get into the classrooms, make that human connection with people, and provide that oversight and that support to the principals and to the teachers.
So good. So good. Folks, you're looking at somebody that's masterful, now moving into the mentoring stage. So we're going to keep an eye on you. And thank you. Thanks for showing us today what student centered leadership really looks like. And to our viewers, you got to keep this district on the watch, with or without this guy. With or without this guy.
Yeah.
Santa Unified is on the mood and moving, modeling in a very, very impressive way. So I'm sure there's ways to track all of that down. But also the 5 Shifts blog, is that something that's
It's
easily
free.
accessible?
It's free, and it's on Substack. All you have to do is subscribe with your email, but it's free, and it's on Substack if anybody's interested.
There we go. We'll put some of those notes out there as well. This has been the show, reminding you that everybody deserves, that's our equity lens. Everybody deserves to live in a community served by really healthy people like this amazing human we've had a chance to spend some time with here, who are also building teams and very reliable systems. So if you found any value to today's conversation, hit that like button, leave a comment, share it with somebody that you think might be just needing to hear this just golden goodness right now, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Until next time, this is Dr. Joe, on purpose to cancel all things average, because average is just kind of meh, right? And just